Lonnie Walker's half-season in Zalgiris has to be one of the strangest EuroLeague stints we've ever seen. Nobody expected to see a still-prime 26-year-old guard with over 300 NBA games under his belt decide at the last minute to move to Lithuania and then to leave the club at another last minute halfway through the season. It's not that Americans never play in Europe, but usually they're older vets on their way down. Or they are fringe prospects who never found a stable NBA job. Lonnie Walker wasn't either of those. He had highlight nights in San Antonio, contributed to a Lakers playoff run, and was still a pretty big name for a mid-season signing overseas. Yet on October 31st, 2024, he officially joined Zalgiris, whose fans had hopes that he might push them into serious EuroLeague contention. At first glance, maybe it made sense for him. Walker had gotten cut by the Boston Celtics in the preseason, and the rest of the NBA apparently wasn't giving him a guaranteed contract. In Kaunas, he would have a major role on a respected EuroLeague team, plus that all-important out clause allowing him to bail if an NBA offer arrived before February 18th. In other words, he could treat Zalgiris as a short-term stage to prove himself in a real competitive setting, both for the watchers stateside and for the clubs in Europe. Meanwhile, Zalgiris was off to a red-hot start. Surprisingly, they were at the top of the standings with a 6-1 record. So it felt like a perfect match, a surging team and a motivated scorer that wanted to keep climbing. Everybody hoped he would at least stay until the end of the season and help them make the playoffs. But his arrival wasn't super smooth. Within days, he was thrown into EuroLeague action. In his first game, he ended up with a -9 efficiency rating, which is unbelievably low even for new arrivals. Of course, he was jet-lagged as he literally landed in Europe just in time for the tip-off. Sure enough, in his next few outings, he started to show off the athletic scoring that made him a first-round pick in the NBA. He would go off and provide bursts of points, blow by defenders for easy layups, and end up with 20+ on the scoreboard each night. In one of his best showings early on, he went off for 24 points against the reigning champions Panathinaikos, giving the EuroLeague fans one of the best dunks of the season.
Oh, splits the double team. Oh my goodness! Lonnie Walker!
This highlight went all over social media, and people in the States were like, wait, Lonnie is in Kaunas? Nah, of course they didn't know where Kaunas was. But the initial honeymoon for both Walker and the team still had rough patches. EuroLeague defenses quickly realized he was the main scoring threat, so they threw double teams and forced him into more passing, which isn't his strength. Zalgiris' game had also transformed to cater to Walker. He was with the ball a lot while on the court and would be the guy to go ISO if set plays were broken. Opponent defenses keyed in on Lonnie and offered more physicality, while Lonnie struggled to adapt. And so the rest of the roster gradually kept losing confidence in themselves, as it all depended on how good of a game Lonnie will have. His couple of meltdown performances reflected it perfectly. For example, the December loss to Aswell, where he finished scoreless in about 14 minutes and posted a -1 efficiency rating.
Gotta be consistent though, take full accountability.
Meanwhile, Zalgiris started dropping close games. They would race out to leads in the first half, then completely collapse in the second half or the fourth quarter. And Lonnie's scoring mirrored that too, as he was scoring around 75% of his total points in the first half. Now, if you only look at stats, you wouldn't think Lonnie was the problem. Some nights he had 18 to 20 points, but the final result would still be a loss for Zalgiris. By midwinter, the team fell out of the top 8 and then even out of the play-in zone. It became clear that Walker's big nights didn't necessarily translate to wins. 6-1 before Lonnie Walker's arrival, 6-13 after. But still, his presence kept the fans excited. He would often produce spectacular finishes or a timely hot streak, giving them hope that if he adapted better, Zalgiris might rebound. They also saw him as a humble worker. After poor games, he would stay late in the gym, train with his personal coach, talk about how seriously he took the new environment. I mean, there are examples such as Kendrick Nunn, who was in a very similar situation. Nunn also struggled at the beginning of his EuroLeague rookie season, but then turned it up in the second half and eventually even won the title for Panathinaikos last year. This season, he's arguably the best player in the EuroLeague. That example alone kept Zalgiris fans' hopes alive. alive. But then came February and the domestic cup tournament in Lithuania. It also meant it was a break from the EuroLeague action. Walker stepped up in the semi-final with 19 points, put on an impressive scoring show and helped Zalgiris reach the final. The final wasn't his biggest performance, but he won the trophy. That gave him his first professional honor overseas, and he seemed genuinely proud. But everyone knew the ticking clock was still here. That buyout clause with a February 18 deadline. Various NBA rumors circulated. One day they linked him to the Bucks, the next day to the Nuggets, and then the Celtics again. Another day some insiders suggested he might not leave at all, hoping for a better deal in the summer. Zalgiris, on the other hand, publicly at least tried to brush it off, but behind the scenes they already were considering a plan B in case he jumped ship. As we got closer to the February 18 deadline, the rumors escalated. On the final day, Mark Stein reported that according to his agent, Walker was staying in Zalgiris for the rest of the season. People in Kaunas had a sigh of relief, thinking that the out clause would expire without any official NBA contract. But just a few hours later, Shams Charania came out with a bombshell. Walker would indeed be leaving for an offer from the Philadelphia 76ers. This was a chaotic timeline. In a span of about an hour, the story flipped from he's staying to he's on the plane. By the next morning, it was confirmed. He had signed a 2-year deal worth around 3.7 million total, with the second year unguaranteed. Zalgiris put out a statement thanking him and admitting they needed to scramble for a new guard. The fans were stunned by how last minute it happened. They had just seen him lift a trophy in Kaunas, heard how he claimed not to be pursuing an iffy deal, and boom, Lonnie Walker was leaving them in the most important part of the EuroLeague season. Lonnie himself explained that he got a phone call around 10 p.m. local time on the 18th, basically telling him, "We have a deal, but it's now or never." He decided that even a partial guarantee was suddenly enough, and that's what's the most surprising detail here. Similarly to his EuroLeague debut in his first Philadelphia game, he came off the bench in limited minutes and went 0-3 from 3. But hey, we can point to the jet lag again, and it's only one game. The Sixers currently sit well below 500 in the East, so it's not a prime situation, and once the injured guards return, he will be basically fighting for a rotation spot, especially next year with Jared McCain back. That is a big contrast from Kaunas, where he had a green light and 20 to 25 minutes a night at least. From Zalgiris' standpoint, they lost one of their best scorers that the coaching staff really tried to integrate. But let's be honest, they must have felt blindsided by how quickly it just flipped. Sure, parting ways also meant some decent buyout money, $450K to be exact, but replacing him with a new guard mid-February is no easy job. Walker's saga is sort of a lesson that mid-season American signings with the NBA outs can be pure chaos for the European teams. One day you get a star that you build your game around, the next day the star is gone for a partial contract with a struggling NBA squad. Whether or not this was the right move for Lonnie remains to be seen. Personally, I think he should have stayed in Europe, not necessarily in Zalgiris, and tried to raise his stocks. Look at how now his fellow Sixer, Gershon Yabusele, went to Europe after his first few NBA years. He became a star there and now has a completely different role in the NBA. Dante Exum is another example to revive his career in the EuroLeague, so to me, this seems like a rushed move. But now you let me know your thoughts on this roller coaster of events. Did Walker make the right move of coming back? Or was it absurd to grab the first official offer from an NBA team? Let me know in the comments below. Also, make sure to check out our second channel called Outside the NBA. Like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.